good evening and a warm welcome to State of Business on Arts Television. I'm Mishain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Government is in the process of assuring an inflow of non-loan foreign exchange into the country, Prime Minister asserts. Sri Lanka Shippers Council calls for an independent inquiry into Express Pearl fire. News in detail. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that measures have already been taken to formulate and implement the necessary legal framework for the Port City project. Prime Minister made this revelation this morning addressing the Asia's first and largest virtual forum, Sri Lanka Investment Forum 2021, which is organised by the Board of Investments, the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the Colombo Stock Exchange.
රටක් හැටියට මෙම බැරෑරුම් තත්ත්වයට දිගින් දිගටම මුහුණ දෙමින් අප රට නැවතත් කඩිසර වැඩමීමක් බවට පත් කරන්න අපට දැන් අවශ්‍යයි. අපි දැනටමත් මාර්ග කිලෝමීටර් ලක්ෂය සෑමට ජලය නව අධිවේගී මාර්ග ඉදිකිරීම වැනි රට පුරා ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන දැවැන්ත ව්‍යාපෘති හරහා ආර්ථිකමය පිබිදීමක් ඇති කරගෙන යනවා. ජනතාව අතර නැවත මුදල් පරිහරණය කරවීම හරහා ව්‍යාපාරික කටයුතු ගොඩනංවනවා. ව්‍යාපාර පහසුවෙන් කර ගැනීම පිණිස අවශ්‍ය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග දියත් කරගෙන යනවා. හම්බන්තොට වරාය ආශ්‍රිත කාර්මික කලාපය තුලින් නව කර්මාන්ත ආරම්භ කිරීමට අවස්ථාව උදා කර දෙනවා. රට පුරා ඖෂධ ඇතුළු අලුත් කර්මාන්ත කලාප දැනටමත් ඉදි කරනවා. කොළඹ පෝට් සිටි ව්‍යාපෘතිය කඩිනමින් දියත් කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය නීතිමය රාමුව සකස් කොට ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට කටයුතු කර තිබෙනවා.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also said instead of obtaining loans, the government is in a process of paving the way for assuring an inflow of non-loan foreign exchange into the country. He also added that a number of measures have already been taken to assure that plan to become a reality.
Dear friends, our government has already started to put a number of measures in place that would make Sri Lanka an attractive country for investors from all around the world. These measures are aimed at ensuring that both local and foreign investors will be able to establish profitable ventures without unnecessary barriers. In this background, we eagerly invite you to select Sri Lanka as your investment destination of choice.
Sri Lanka Shippers Council, representing exporters and importers in Sri Lanka, called for an independent inquiry into Express Pearl fire, which has caused environmental damage and led the island to call for help from India. They also said it is necessary to check whether new IMO rules are needed to mandate such assistance early. Sri Lanka Shippers Council in a statement calls for a thorough and impartial investigation on this incident, particularly keeping politics and geopolitics aside from the probe so that justice will prevail. The association is expected to correctly declare dangerous cargo according to International Maritime Organization's rules, where they are classed into 9 categories. They said that the International Maritime Organization's IMDG code has clear guidelines to handle these type of cargo and incidents. However, at the same time, they also added that the resolutions and international laws ratified need to be locally included appropriately in country legislation for it to be considered as the law of the land. Colombo Port's Harbour Master Nirmal Silva told reporters the issue of giving priority berthing did not arise because the port was only informed of the problem after the ship anchored in the outer harbour and developments had then come rapidly. Shipping agents have been influencing Sri Lanka maritime policy for decades, blocking liberalisation to make the transshipment hub into a full foreign direct investment-driven maritime hub like Singapore, critics say. The Shippers Council also added that in a nutshell, most of these items could be well addressed and rectified if a robust longer-term shipping and logistics policy is implemented in the island. The government should take appropriate action to involve experts in the industry and main industry bodies in developing such policy soon, and successive governments should continue to endorse the policy if we are to succeed in our commercial maritime activities. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break.
Hello. දැන් ඔයා හිතන්නේ හැමදේම වෙනස් වුණේ කොහොමද කියලානේ? උත්තරේ මගේ ළඟ තියෙනවා. නෑකම් ඕනෑකම් හඳුනගත්තා. අපිවම වෙනස් කරගන්න ක්‍රම හෙව්වා. අලුත් බීජ පැලකිරුවා. හිතුනේ ඒක කරන්න බෑ වගේ තමයි. හැබැයි ඒක කරන්න පටන් ගන්නකම් විතරයි. ඒක දැවැන්ත එකමුතුවක්. අපි හැදුනේ එකම සබැඳියාවක බැඳීමෙන්. හැමදේම හොඳ වුණේ සබැඳියාවේ හැදීමෙන්. අපි මෙතනට ආවේම එකම එක සබැඳියාවක රැඳීමෙන්. ගෙදරට වැඩකට ගමනට එකම එක සබැඳියාවක බැඳෙන මුළු මහත් රටකට. Good morning sir, how can I help?
SLT Mobitel එකම එක සබැඳියාව.
මේ දවස්වල ඔබ ජීවිතය නවතීවී කියා අනියත බියකින්ද ඈත ඉස්පිරිතාලයකට වඩා ගෙයි ස්තෝප්පුව වටිනවා. හුස්ම පිඹින යන්ත්‍රයකට වඩා හුස්ම පරිස්සම් කරන මුඛාවරණයක් වටිනවා. ප්‍රතිකාරයට වඩා ප්‍රවේශම වටිනවා. නිතර දෑත් සෝදන්න. මුහුණ නිතර අතගන්න එපා. දුරින් නැසුරු කරමු. නිවස අපේ ජීවිතයේ නවාතැන කර ගනිමු. ජීවිතයේ සිහිනයට වාසනාවේ ආශිර්වාදය. NLB.
Welcome back after the break. Minister of Mass Media Kehlia Rambukwala stresses that the revitalization of travel restrictions should be done very carefully. Questioned by journalists at today's Cabinet media briefing, Minister Rambukwala said that travel restrictions have badly affected on the country's economy, but it needs to be managed with much more attention.
Travel restrictions will have to be evaluated very carefully and cautiously, because you have two ways. One is bringing them in. If that's going to aggravate the situation of the COVID, then you need to think about it as to how you should manage it. At the same time, you can't completely, because the investments are so huge, as you know, in the tourism industry. And then worldwide, 11% of the entire labor force of the world is on travel and tourism business. So that's a huge slice. It's something that we need to address very, very seriously. At the same time, we should strike a balance as to how we are going to manage this with the COVID situation, how we could open the gates and how we have to manage it. And then there'll be a lot of criticisms on this. I mean, it's usual. I mean, that is nothing unusual, because some people don't want the economy to move forward under these conditions even. But as a government, we have to find ways and means of moving forward and bringing the economy to a standard where we are not going to collapse. Because all over the world we are faced with this issue. So right now, as far as this tourism sector is concerned, it is a concern. It is a concern that we need to address.
Sri Lanka's central bank yesterday advised the banks to provide selected services under health guidelines during a coronavirus lockdown. This sudden instruction from the central bank came in a background where almost all the private banks planned to limit their services to only online transactions. Accordingly, as per the instructions from the Director General of Health Services and the Inspector General of Police, Central Bank has already requested licensed commercial banks and licensed specialized banks to carry out essential banking services. Central Bank at the same time has instructed to strictly adhere to all relevant safety measures and guidelines issued by the relevant authorities in providing banking services under ongoing travel restrictions during the COVID-19 outbreak. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka, upon obtaining approval, consent of the Director General of Health Services and the Inspector General of Police, having observed the recent communications notices published by licensed banks on provisions of banking services, CBSL last evening reiterated the need for all licensed banks to make necessary arrangements to provide uninterrupted banking services. Accordingly, bank branches shall only be open to provide essential services such as trade financing, treasury operations, clearing activities, payment of pensions or salaries, responding to other urgent inquiries of customers. Considering the staff health and safety, only 15 employees will be allowed for a branch. Staff shall report to work on a roster basis, or the branches shall only be opened on specified days. Branch managers shall obtain prior approval of the nearest police station for the travel of the relevant staff. Further, licensed banks are also required to publish notices informing the general public how essential banking services can be obtained. take adequate measures to keep the bank's customers informed of the contact details for obtaining essential banking services during this challenging period. Media Minister Kehliya Ramukwala says that the government has already identified that media education has become a source of income for some individuals, completely forgetting the quality factor. Minister Ramukwala, virtually addressing the cabinet media briefing this morning, said that monitoring mechanism and a curriculum should be planned out soon to address this issue.
Not only in the field of journalism, it's in many fields. In fact, I've discussed this matter with Professor G.L. Pieris, that you need some kind of monitoring of all these private institutions that sometimes where the people are just the public is taken for a ride. In the sense they say that the 3 months course and they charge a fairly large sums. And the parents, particularly after O-levels and A-levels, the parents try to promote that because they want their children to be employed and they feel that there is something lacking, English classes and sort of computer. You find many of those things, and I think it is time that we have some monitoring mechanism and the curriculum to be planned out, and then perhaps have a general curriculum that should be put in place. So I think your point is taken. And that's been discussed at the moment. I'm sure at the earliest possible time that we would take necessary action, and we will see that it is adequately addressed.
Stay tuned for stock updates.
Unlimited නම් ඉතින් SLT Mobitel Unlimited Internet. හැමෝටම ෆිට වෙන හෝම් සහ මොබයිල් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් පැකේජ් පෙළක්. හුරු වෙන්න අපේ Unlimited Internet වලට. SLT Mobitel එකම එක සැබඳියාව.
Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all-share price index dropped by 49.70 points to close at 7,542.20, and the S&P SL 20 dropped by 22.13 points to close at 3,033.01. The turnover was 2 billion rupees and over 97 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care and good night.